Perhaps you've seen it. Maybe in a dream. A murky, forgotten land.
Hello there, Seraphim17 once again. This is some more PvP in Dark Souls 2 Arena, and this time it's a little bit more focused on the Gower ring, or Gower, depending on how you pronounce it. It is a very special ring that only exists in New Game Plus. You can get it by using a bonfire ascetic, and what it does essentially is, in the guide it lists it as negating backstab damage, which I don't think I've ever been backstabbed while wearing it, so I don't know if that's the function that it does, but it does considerably more than that, and I believe a lot of the information about this ring sells it kind of short. So what it does do, for those who are wondering, who are watching this, it completely neutralizes damage from behind. It is absolutely insane, and instead of taking damage, your durability gets damaged. Once your durability is damaged too much, the ring will break and you will lose the benefit of it. You might be wondering, how the hell can a ring like this exist? Well, there's some pretty good reasons for why it's not quite as good as what a lot of people originally first think. The first one is it weighs 10 units, which is heavier than some weapons, and on some builds it's just too heavy. The second downfall is it occupies a ring slot that could be given to something like the Ring of the Old Sun or the Ring of Thorns, which a lot of people are wearing because they're very, very useful when it comes to getting hit, and they do massive damage if you get very lucky. So it is sacrificing a ring slot. But aside from that, there are a lot of benefits to this ring, and this is a video showcasing you just some of the stuff that you can do. And before anybody, says the obligatory comment of, you're shit, you're not good at this, blah blah blah. This is not a showcase of me destroying people using this ring. This is me showing you what this ring is capable of on some of the fights where I was experimenting with it. I'm using the same build you've seen in every PvP video. The difference here is I have a little bit of a different armor going on, and I'm using dual reinforced clubs, which, if you've never used them against a human being, they're very tricky to use because they're very slow. And the thing I wanted to do most when I was doing this session was to experiment with people's expectations. And what I mean by that is, you're going to notice I give people my back a lot, and they don't really know how to respond, a lot of them. Like, my first instinct when I was doing it, because it feels so alien to me, was I'm going to get backstabbed a lot. But you'd be surprised, when somebody sees you giving them your back, they don't quite know where you're going with it, and you generally get two responses. You get the wait and see response of perhaps a more experienced player curious of what you're doing. Some people do what he did then, where they kind of imitate what you're doing. They'll do the back steps, and they'll be a little bit more passive, and then they'll try and get you with a big hitting move. And then the opposite of these two techniques is the person that just kind of tries to get the free hit, because the game is so new at this point, nobody understands what this ring really does. And when you come up against somebody who does, it's interesting watching them deal with it. Because when it is active and when you're using it, and even on times when you're not intending, you can still get the immunity from this ring. Like, there are times when I roll past an attack and the person does a second hit in that chain of combos, and I still get hit because of phantom range, because of lag, because Dark Souls 2 is a piece of shit online at times for a lot of players, and it can be incredibly frustrating because we were promised dedicated servers, and we got those for the messages and for connecting and for signs and ghosts and all the things that nobody really gives a fuck about aside from perhaps the connection part. And then when you do get into an invasion and a fight, it's peer-to-peer, so it's as if nothing's changed and it hasn't really improved, which is, you get instances like this where a man with a rapier is able to do a lot of damage to me when he's not physically connecting to me. So it can be very frustrating, but it's such an interesting ring, and I'll probably not use it too much more after I've finished with this little experimentation, but it saves you in so many circumstances you didn't realise that you can be saved in. And I actually think that as powerful as it is against people, I think it's more powerful against the AI. And this is a very interesting player here. What he's doing, did you see that? My backstab didn't even take like 1/4 of his bar. It was just under 1/4. That's how much armor and how much life this guy's got, and these are fully upgraded. I'm not spec'd really to use them at an optimum level. They're not elemental, which seems to be the scaling or the damage that a lot of people are going for because it's most powerful. But still, you know, a backstab is meant to do a lot of damage, which just goes to show how much armor this guy has. And if you've not seen what he's doing, he poisoned me with the whips, and then he moved on to building bleed with the claws. And because he's got a lot of poise and a lot of defense, he goes for the stun lock, which I suppose is a pretty clever tactic. It's just not very fun to fight, and I haven't seen too much of that, which is nice, but I can imagine it getting really annoying, which is what a lot of these people are probably thinking when they're hitting me and not doing any damage. But did you see that? That was the only person in this sequence of videos who broke the ring. And did you see how much I was able to take? If any of those had hit me, there would be no way in hell I would be still standing. And just let me tell you, like, look at the difference between mine and his hits. It's these moments when I really wonder, when I'm playing with weapons such as these, that they say every weapon is viable. You know, they try and balance the game in such a way where everything is viable, and I don't know, man, there's certain stuff that really stands out. Like that just then, that was the old Sun Ring hitting him for massive damage. More damage than he's hitting me for, and that's really surprising because he's using a weapon buff called, is it Resonant Weapon, I think it's called? He's also using a catalyst that has scaling in almost every magical stat, which when you first look at it and you look at the player status, it can give you an attack rating of over 1,000, and you might be thinking, Jesus Christ, 1,000, but then you've got to bear in mind it's split like 4 ways, so the damage of it is going to be significantly decreased against certain things. And when I was experimenting with spellcasters, because I have done that, you know, a catalyst that says it's got over 1,000 attack range and it's performing, you know, pretty poorly, just goes to show the deficit of some of the scaling, and it's much better to get things that benefit your build. But you might notice now that I'm using double katanas, which is a much stronger setup than the double reinforced clubs. And I'm fighting a guy here who's called Wacko, who we exchanged some messages. He seemed like a nice guy. He's using a pickaxe. And I couldn't believe it, man. I sent him a message after this, like, as if you got that weapon. And for anybody that doesn't know, this is a weapon that is so difficult to get for no other reason than the creature that gets it for you has a 1 in 1,000 probability of spawning. And that is not me, you know, blowing smoke up your ass, guys. That is the stat. That is what the guide says. That is all the information we have. And to this day, I've been playing Dark Souls since it came out. I have not got that ring. I have not got that weapon yet. And I've tried. I've tried for about 3 or 4 hours, just doing nothing but hitting that bonfire, checking for the pig, hitting the bonfire, checking for the pig, and I've seen nothing. And I can't even begin to tell you how frustrating it is. And in fact, tonight, before I came down to do these, I was doing it, and I can probably say it's the first time I've been officially burned out on Dark Souls 2's PvE, because I was trying to get the Great Dragon Sword by killing an NPC by using Bonfire Ascetics, and I'm now up to New Game 38, New Game Plus 38, and I still don't have it as a drop because it's almost never drops. And then I tried to do something else, and that wasn't working out, and then I tried to do that, and it's almost as frustrating as falling off that bridge like an idiot, like I do every time I do that arena. And some players have told me in the comment sections on the videos that you can actually pick which arena you get, but it's indicative of your rank. So the amount of people picking that bridge because they know they can get really cheap and easy wins by just, you know, running in with super powerful weapons and buffs is a little bit sad, but you know, that's the type of crowd you're going to attract when you put something in your game like this. But this is a dude who's using, I think it's a washing pole with Sunlight Blade on it, and he does a lot of damage, so it was really nice to come back with a katana and hit him for a change instead of getting beaten up. You might remember from the first video, I think he was in that and he pretty much 3-shot me or something, so always fun to see. But this is a great example of the power of this ring. That move then is a 2 to 3 hit attack, and it's very backstabbable, unfortunately, as he just found out. And it's incredibly dangerous with the buff on it, and that's the reason why it's getting such a bad impression. A lot of people are talking a lot of shit about the Lancers, saying that, you know, they're too strong and they're too this and they're too that, but I think they're fine, man. I think they're very situational. This player here has an upgraded aura, and you can tell why. He's using every magic under the sun, he's almost in full Havels, and he has Crystal Magic Weapon on a very long sword. So Like, you know when people, if you read the comments on any of my PvP videos where people are getting really frustrated and they're getting really annoyed at players, you're pretty much looking at the builds that's making everybody angry. And there's a good reason for it, because they're very effective. And a lot of the times what is effective is not necessarily what is fun. And some people are just in it to win, so you need to be aware that you're going to come against certain folks who aren't running around with lancers, like this guy who... I had a lot of fun fighting this person. And I don't know if he's using flame weapon or if he's using a buff. I surprised him then though, and a couple of people might be wondering how you do what I did just then. I think it's called the ravioli step, but it's kind of different in this game. In Dark Souls it was easy to do because the game was responsive and it worked, but in this game, because they've made animation such a high priority, you can't turn an attack anymore, so there's a very particular timing on it which is going to throw a lot of players off. But something else I've not mentioned, the guy here is using Chameleon, as you just saw, and when you take damage in Chameleon on Dark Souls 2, it doesn't get rid of the illusion. And you might think, well, it's pointless because it's stupid, but it's actually really not, because you can't lock onto a person who's in Chameleon, and if you can't lock onto them, it makes a lot of things much more difficult. But that is a nice example of some of the experimentation I was able to do with the ring. I'll let you folks decide whether or not you think it's worth using or if it's just novelty, but I think it's incredibly powerful, but at times it's limiting unless you're just going to rely on it to take a couple of hits that you normally wouldn't want to take. But thank you for watching, and as always, you take care now.